Our neighborhood was supposed to be a quiet escape, a lakeside community with white fences, trimmed lawns, and the illusion of peace. But if you lived there long enough, you knew the truth. It wasn't peaceful. It was controlled. And at the heart of that control stood Karen Whitmore, the HOA president who treated our community like her personal kingdom. Karen's rules were endless. Your grass couldn't be half an inch too tall. Your mailbox couldn't be a shade off regulation beige. Even the toys my kids left in the yard became visual hazards, according to her. Every time she sent a notice, she'd tape it to our front door like a public mark of shame. My wife, Lily, used to laugh it off. Let her, she'd say, smiling as she brushed dust off the letter. She needs something to do. But behind that smile, I saw the exhaustion growing. Karen's harassment wasn't just about lawns or fences anymore. She'd begun targeting my family personally. It started with small acts. Anonymous complaints about noise that didn't exist, fines for unsanctioned guests, when my brother visited, photos of our backyard mysteriously appearing on HOA bulletins. Then, one morning, our security cameras caught something worse. Karen, on our porch, taking pictures of Lily through the living room window. That's when I knew this wasn't about rules. It was about control. I confronted her the next day. She stood in her garden, arms crossed, sunglasses glinting like armor. "You're violating several HOA codes," she said before I could speak. "Unapproved modifications, unregistered vehicles, and that ugly ramp on your porch. The one my wife uses after surgery?" I interrupted, keeping my voice calm. "The one that lets her walk safely into her own home?" Karen didn't blink. "The community has standards. I suggest you follow them." From that day, she escalated. She began spreading rumors about Lily, calling her unstable, claiming she'd seen her yelling at our kids, even hinting to neighbors that we were under investigation. It was all lies, but lies spread fast in tidy neighborhoods with nosy eyes. Then came the final straw. One evening, I came home from work to find Lily crying on the porch. She was holding a letter, another fine, this one for property damage. When I read it, I almost laughed in disbelief. Karen had fined us $1,200 for our children's chalk drawings on the driveway. Defacement of HOA property, Lily read aloud through tears. She's gone insane. I wanted to storm to Karen's house right then, but Lily stopped me. "Don't," she said softly. "Please, that's what she wants. Let's stay calm." But staying calm around someone like Karen was like asking a storm not to thunder. She fed on power, on watching others bend under her rules. And when we didn't, when Lily stood tall and defiant, something in Karen snapped. That week, I noticed her watching us more often. From her car. From across the street. Sometimes she'd even slow walk past our house while pretending to talk on her phone, her eyes fixed on the window, where Lily liked to sit with the kids. It was unsettling, like living under surveillance. Our neighbors began to whisper. Some avoided eye contact. Others offered awkward sympathy. "You should just move," one of them said. "No one wins against her." But I wasn't going anywhere. This was our home, the one we built from scratch, the one Lily decorated with her hands, the one where our kids took their first steps. Karen wasn't going to scare us out. Then came the community barbecue. I didn't want to go, neither did Lily, but Karen made it mandatory for all residents in good standing. She used it as a chance to flaunt her control. The event started friendly enough, kids running, grills sizzling, until Karen found us. "Well, look who decided to show up," she said, her voice honeyed with sarcasm. "The homeowners of the year." Lily smiled tightly. "Just here for the kids." Karen leaned closer. "I'd be careful showing your face too much, dear. People are starting to talk." That was when I saw it, the flicker in her eyes. This wasn't just a petty HOA rivalry anymore. This was personal. Whatever line existed between rule enforcement and obsession, she had crossed it long ago. When we left the event, I noticed something strange, a few board members whispering near Karen's car. One of them glanced at me nervously before looking away. It was clear. Something was brewing behind closed doors. That night, I stayed awake long after the kids slept. I sat on the porch, listening to the crickets and the faint hum of the lake in the distance. Every few minutes, a shadow would flicker near Karen's house. Maybe her, maybe not. Lily came out, wrapped in her shawl. "You're thinking about her again," she said gently. "Don't let her live rent-free in your head." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "She's not going to stop, Lily. She's waiting for us to break a rule so she can drag us through court." Lily smiled sadly. "Then we won't give her the satisfaction." But as she leaned against me, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen wasn't waiting for a rule to break. She was waiting for a moment of weakness, a moment to strike. And deep down, I feared that moment was coming soon. Because when someone like Karen loses control of her narrative, she doesn't retreat, she lashes out. And my gut told me that the storm she was brewing would hit not tomorrow, not next week, but very soon. It was a Friday evening, the kind that smelled of summer rain and barbecue smoke. Lily was inside helping the kids with their homework, the twins giggling over crayons and math sheets, while I was out front washing the car. The air felt heavier than usual, thick with humidity, and something else, something uneasy. Across the street, Karen's porch light flickered on and off, though the sun hadn't even set. She'd been doing that a lot lately, pacing her yard, checking her mailbox every hour, muttering into her phone as if the world was conspiring against her. The truth was, her control was slipping. After our last confrontation, several neighbors had begun questioning her authority. Complaints about her bullying had piled up at the county office. Even the HOA treasurer had quietly resigned, citing ethical differences. Karen's empire of fear was crumbling, and she blamed us for it. That evening, as thunder rolled far away, Lily stepped outside holding 2 mugs of coffee. "It feels like the air's holding its breath," she said softly. I nodded, watching the darkening sky. "Storm's coming." She smiled faintly. "The real one or the Karen kind?" Before I could answer, the sound of a car door slamming echoed across the street. Karen's SUV sat crooked in her driveway, one headlight busted. She climbed out, still wearing her HOA badge on a lanyard, clutching a stack of papers like a weapon. "Oh no," Lily murmured, setting down her cup. Karen stomped toward us. Rain just beginning to fall. "You think you can defy me?" she shouted, waving the papers. "You think the rules don't apply because your husband plays judge in his little courthouse?" "Karen," I said evenly, "this is not the time. Go home." But she didn't stop. Her eyes were wild, even as she marched closer, her voice rising over the rumbling sky. "You've poisoned this neighborhood. You've turned everyone against me. And you," she jabbed a finger toward Lily, "you don't belong here." Neighbors began to peek out from behind curtains. Someone started recording. The tension crackled like lightning. I took a step forward. "Karen, you're trespassing. This ends now." She reached into her purse. For a second, time froze. When her hand came out, there was a metallic glint, a small pistol. Gasps erupted from the neighbors watching. Lily instinctively shielded the kids behind her. My heart kicked into overdrive. "Karen," I said firmly, "put down now." But she wasn't listening. Her voice trembled between fury and panic. "You've ruined everything. They're all against me." Then a flash. Not the gun, but the sky. A thunderbolt split the clouds and rain poured down in sheets. The sudden roar startled Karen. Her hand jerked, and the gun fired into the ground with a deafening crack. Dirt sprayed across the driveway, and the echo rattled the air. The kids screamed. Lily held them tight. I stepped forward slowly, my palms raised. "Karen, stop. Look at me. Nobody's hurt. Don't make this worse." She blinked, her shoulders trembling, eyes darting between the weapon and the neighbors filming her every move. Her voice broke. "They'll take everything from me," she whispered. "The board, the house, everything." "Then let them," I said. "You've already lost more than you realize." At that moment, the first police siren wailed in the distance. Someone had already called 911. Karen's face twisted, part fear, part denial. "They won't understand," she hissed. "You don't understand." She dropped the gun into a puddle, hands shaking. When the squad cars arrived, their lights painted the wet pavement in red and blue. Officers jumped out, shouting orders. "Karen, didn't resist. She just stared blankly at the flashing lights as they cuffed her hands behind her back. As the officers led her away, she turned her head toward us, rain running down her face. "You did this," she spat. "You ruined me." But I didn't answer. I just held Lily close, feeling the tremor in her hands. The kids were crying softly, frightened but safe. An officer approached. "Sir," he said, respectfully recognizing me. "We'll take her in. She's facing several charges: reckless endangerment, unlawful discharge, and child endangerment given your family's presence." I nodded, keeping my voice steady. "Do what you have to do." As Karen's SUV was towed away, the neighborhood fell into an eerie silence. The storm eased, leaving behind only dripping roofs and distant thunder. Lily looked up at me, her eyes full of emotion. "It's over," she whispered, but I knew better. "No," I said quietly. "It's just beginning." Because what Karen didn't realize, not yet, was that brandishing a weapon in front of a judge's family wasn't just reckless. It was a federal offense. And when the system she thought she controlled came crashing down, she'd learn what real accountability felt like. By dawn, the neighborhood had changed forever. Karen's house stood dark and silent, police tape across the porch like a warning banner. The usual chirp of sprinklers and lawnmowers was replaced by murmured questions from reporters gathered near the gate. For once, the HOA president wasn't the one calling the shots, law enforcement was. Inside our home, the adrenaline had finally worn off, leaving a heavy quiet. Lily brewed coffee in the kitchen while I sat at the dining table, replaying every second of the previous night in my mind. I had given witness statements before, but never about an event that unfolded in my own driveway. By mid-morning, detectives arrived again, this time with federal agents. They introduced themselves politely, but their presence carried weight. One badge bore the seal of the U.S. Marshals Service, another from the Department of Justice's Judicial Security Division. When a federal judge's family is threatened, jurisdiction changes fast. "Mr. Warren," one agent began, "we're here to make sure your family is protected and to gather everything relevant to the case. We'll handle this quickly and discreetly." I nodded, leading them to my office. The room smelled of paper and cedar. Law books lined the shelves, silent witnesses to a lifetime spent believing in systems of order. I handed them a flash drive, copies of our home's security footage. It showed the argument the moment Karen pulled the gun and the discharge into the ground. Enough to speak louder than any testimony. The agents watched in silence. When the clip ended, one of them exhaled. "That's all we need. She's in deep." Within hours, warrants were issued for search and seizure of HOA records. The investigation expanded beyond the confrontation. It became a full audit of Karen's reign. Emails surfaced, angry, threatening messages she'd sent to residents, fabricating violations, and manipulating board votes. Financial documents revealed missing funds from community dues. She'd used the HOA as both weapon and wallet. Neighbors who once stayed silent now came forward. A retired couple admitted that Karen had fined them for planting non-approved flowers. Another resident described being followed home after questioning a budget report. Everyone had a story, and together they painted a chilling picture, not of a misguided leader, but of a woman intoxicated by control. Meanwhile, media interest grew. Local news ran the headline, "HOA president arrested after threat against federal judge's family." The story spread fast. Reporters camped near the entrance, seeking interviews. I declined every request. This wasn't about spectacle. It was about closure. When the preliminary hearing was scheduled, security was tighter than any HOA meeting Karen had ever presided over. Federal marshals flanked the courthouse. Plainclothes agents lined the corridors. Inside the courtroom, the air buzzed with tension. Karen sat at the defense table, pale and hollow-eyed, wearing the same arrogance that had once dominated every neighborhood meeting, only now it looked brittle. The prosecutor laid out the charges methodically, reckless endangerment with a firearm, unlawful discharge of a weapon in a residential area, making threats toward a public official's family, fraudulent mismanagement of community funds. Each charge landed like a gavel strike. I watched, detached yet conflicted. Part of me pitted her, not for what she'd done, but for how far she'd fallen. She'd built her identity on fear, and now fear was all she had left. Lily testified briefly, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She described the confrontation, but never dramatized it. All I wanted, she said softly, was for our kids to grow up without being bullied in their own home. Her words hit the courtroom harder than any legal argument. Even the judge paused before continuing. When my turn came, I took the stand as both victim and jurist. I kept my testimony factual, the timeline, the threats, the footage. Still, I could feel the weight of the courtroom's eyes, the whispered recognition that the man testifying was usually the one sitting behind the bench. Afterward, an agent informed me quietly, given her misuse of HOA authority, the state intends to dissolve the current board entirely. It was an unexpected twist. The scandal had consumed not just Karen, but the system she'd built. Every document she'd ever signed was under review. By the second week, plea negotiations began. Karen's attorney argued emotional instability, but the evidence was too strong. She eventually accepted a full confession, hoping for leniency. Even so, federal charges meant real prison time. When the hearing adjourned for the day, I stepped outside into the cool afternoon air. Reporters called my name, cameras flashed, but I ignored them. What mattered was behind me, a courtroom that had finally stripped Karen of the power she abused. That evening, our neighborhood group chat buzzed with relief. Someone posted a photo of the for sale sign planted in Karen's yard. Another offered to organize a proper community meeting, one about rebuilding, not controlling. For the first time in years, people sounded hopeful. At home, the kids slept soundly, unaware of the storm that had finally passed. Lily sat beside me on the couch, resting her head on my shoulder. "Do you think she'll change?" she asked quietly. I thought about it, watching the rain streak across the window. I said, she'll finally learn what rules are for. Because rules aren't meant to cage people, they're meant to protect them. And sometimes it takes losing everything to understand that. The courtroom was packed the morning the verdict was read. Reporters lined the hallways, microphones like a forest of waiting eyes. Every seat inside was filled, neighbors, former board members, even a few county officials who'd once turned a blind eye to Karen's abuses. The air carried that unmistakable tension that comes before truth finally lands. Karen entered in a gray suit, wrists free of cuffs but guarded closely. She looked smaller than anyone remembered, like the weight of her own arrogance had finally crushed her shoulders. The courtroom murmured until the judge entered, and the bailiff called for silence. When the proceedings began, no one dared move. The prosecutor spoke first, outlining months of investigation, hundreds of documents, dozens of witnesses. Power, she said, is a tool meant for stewardship, not self-interest. The defendant used her position to intimidate, to isolate, and to harm. The community she was elected to serve lived in fear. It ends today. Then it was the defense's turn. Her attorney didn't fight the facts. He simply asked for mercy. She lost herself, he said. Fear of irrelevance made her lash out. But remorse is real. The judge nodded slowly, taking notes. When it was time for victims to speak, the courtroom fell silent again. Lily stood, steady and graceful, holding a written statement. "We never wanted revenge," she said. "We only wanted to live in peace, to raise our children without constant fear. I hope Mrs. Whitmore understands what she took from this neighborhood and what she can still give back by accepting responsibility." Her words echoed softly through the chamber. Even Karen lowered her gaze. When the judge finally spoke, his tone was calm but iron firm. "This court has reviewed every piece of evidence. Mrs. Whitmore, you wielded authority like a weapon. You misused public trust, created false reports, and endangered a family. For that, you will serve 12 years in federal custody, followed by supervised release, restitution of funds, and a permanent bar from any housing authority position. The gavel fell. It sounded like the final clap of thunder after a long storm. Karen didn't look at anyone as marshals approached. She whispered something to her lawyer. Maybe an apology, maybe an excuse, but it was lost under the shuffle of movement. When the door closed behind her, the crowd exhaled as one. Outside, the sky was bright, impossibly blue after weeks of gray. Neighbors hugged. Some cried. Reporters shouted questions, but most people just wanted to breathe free air again. That evening, the neighborhood gathered in the park, the same park Karen once ruled with inspection forms and fines. This time, there were no clipboards, no speeches about compliance. Kids played tag. Someone brought music. For the first time, laughter drowned out fear. The HOA reformed under temporary management, promising transparency and community votes for every major decision. The first motion passed unanimously, no president, only a council. No one wanted another ruler, they wanted balance. At home, Lily tucked the twins into bed. They had drawn chalk hearts on the driveway again earlier that day, this time without worry. She smiled as she joined me on the porch. The sunset brushed the lake in gold. The same lake that had once reflected flashing police lights. "Do you ever wish we'd moved?" she asked softly. I shook my head. If we had, she would have won. Now, this place isn't hers anymore, it's everyone's. She leaned against me. "So, what happens next, Judge?" I looked out at the quiet street, at porch lights glowing warm instead of harsh. "Next," I said, "we live, we rebuild, and we make sure our kids know that justice doesn't mean anger, it means balance." Lily smiled. "That sounds like a verdict I can live with." We sat there until the last light faded, listening to the gentle rhythm of water against the shore. The neighborhood, once ruled by fear, finally breathed again. For the first time in years, peace didn't feel like a dream, it felt earned. And as the night settled, I realized something simple yet profound. Evil doesn't end with punishment. It ends when good people refuse to look away.